Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Three Questions with Mary at Anderson's Bookshop. We are here today in snowy Grange for a special narrators edition of Three Questions. I became more familiar with audiobooks and really started listening to them when Libro FM came out. And we'll talk about that a little more at the end, but that's the audio program for indie bookstores. And I learned that, the narrator can really make or break a book for me. And one of my favorite books since starting to work here was Be Frank With Me by Julia Claiborne Johnson. And the narrator for her book, Tavia Gilbert, actually won the 2017 Audie Female Narrator Award for her narration of this book. So when I thought about interviewing a narrator, she was the first one that came to mind because Julia speaks so highly of her. And Tavia has narrated dozens and dozens of books. Tavia, thank you so much for agreeing to join us today.
It's so my pleasure. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you three questions, although I could ask you a dozen, but we'll go with three today.
That sounds great.
The first one, so how does a person become a narrator, and what career choices led you to this job?
When I set my sights on becoming an audiobook narrator, I was already a professional actor. So I had a BFA in acting, had studied that in college, had worked professionally in theater, in on-camera work, done a little film, done a lot of commercial work. And so I have those acting skills, that acting education, which is absolutely key. This is an acting craft. And while there is also a lot of business knowledge that needs to accompany it, because it's a small business, we're entrepreneurial, we audiobook narrators. The first thing that I drew upon was all the training that I'd received and all the experience that I'd received as an actor on stage and on screen. The reason, there were many reasons I thought that this would be a great career path for me. I love storytelling. I loved listening to audiobooks. I'm a writer as well as an actor, and so writing craft was deeply important to me. I wanted to be entrepreneurial and build a business that I was in charge of creating and growing and defining. I wanted to have the flexibility and the freedom of being able to work virtually anywhere. This is my whisper room, so this is key, and it's massive and very heavy, so I couldn't just move this around casually. But as long as I can move my whisper room somewhere and have a laptop and an internet connection and a small amount of equipment, I can run a business. So if I ever want to or need to move to a particular place, my business goes with me, and I loved that freedom. So it was the best of things that I was deeply passionate about: acting, literature, business. It was a great fit, and it's been a wonderful career for me.
That is excellent, and a lot more involved than I would have thought at first. Yes, very much so. And with all of the many, many books that you've narrated, have you ever narrated a book that you just didn't really like, you weren't feeling it so much?
Yes, I have. I've done a number of books that I've not been passionate about. I have very strong boundaries for what I will work within and what I will not. So any book that includes sexual violence and titillation is not for me. If it includes torture, gratuitous torture without a comment on the depravity of that, that is also not for me. And there's a lot of that in the world. So I don't choose those books, don't take those books on. But then there's a whole wide world of books after that. And certainly there are books that I don't enjoy. And that usually, it doesn't come down to genre at all. comes down to the writing craft. Is the writer invested their whole soul and effort and heart and intelligence and courage in the book or not? There are a lot of writers who don't and are successful, and those are also books that are not for me. I have done a number of them, but I much prefer to work with writers who are deeply invested in the craft of writing, want to make their worlds come alive, and use every tool at their disposal with great humility and great heart. So I am passionate about the books, regardless of genre, that are embodying the best of the human spirit. No matter how I feel about the book, though, I'm always putting myself completely, giving myself over to recording that book, because no matter what I feel about it, if I'm taking it on and voicing it, I want the listener to have a transformative, entertaining, heartfelt, memorable, evocative experience. So once I'm in the booth working on it, my ego and my feelings about it are irrelevant. It's all about the listener.
How wonderful to be at a point where you have so many choices on which books to take on. That's very cool. And so each book, I would imagine, has its own particular voice. Do you practice narrating each book beforehand to kind of find the voice for that book?
I don't practice. There's no rehearsal involved. I read the book thoroughly before I narrate it, and that's absolutely right. Each book has its own unique voice. So my voice changes from book to book, whether it's the internal life of a 14-year-old young woman on the spectrum, or a former nun in her 80s. The voice is going to sound different. It must. So my prep, my rehearsal, is to read the book, inhabit the book, think about it, feel it, let it live in me, mark it with all of the different colors of marks that guide me through different parts of my performance, and then get out of the way of it. Trust that I, as a medium, will have that story move through me, move through my voice, and reach the listener in a way that's deep and rich and authentic. So it's a pretty efficient business. We don't have a lot of time to linger. I'd love to, but no, I read it twice, read in prep and then perform.
Wow, that is quite a craft and a talent. And I'm so glad that you came over virtually to hang out with us and share those talents with us and the insights of what goes into narrating an audiobook. And
I was with you in person, but
one day yes, that will happen for sure. And so Libro FM is the Indie Bookstore's audiobook program. For those of you, like I said, that like to listen on your devices, you can go to Libro FM. There's a membership program. The prices are very competitive to any other audio programs that are out there, but you're still supporting independent bookstores, which is very important because it brings me here and allows me to spend time with wonderful narrators like Tavia. And thank you again for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much. It's so my pleasure. Thanks again.
Thank you.